What's up, Night Owl? Steely here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be telling you about the Rime of the Frostmaiden, Chapter 2, location, Ascendant. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea how I wanted to approach this location. The first time that I read it, I hated it. Oh, did I hate it. And I'm still a little, like, after reading it and kind of getting familiar with it and actually running it, I guess it's grown on me, but I'm still, if you were to tell me that you didn't like this location, I wouldn't blame you. Like, there's a few locations where if you're like, "Oh man, Steely, I hate this one," I'd tell you like, "What? This one's awesome." But for It Ascendant, if you were to tell me you hated this one, I would understand completely. This is one of those. This is one of those locations. This is one of those quests where you'll either love it or hate it. And the reason for that is because it's it's so out there. I don't want. I'm not going to use the. I'm not going to say out of this world. I promised I wouldn't say that. It's out there. The premise of the quest is that a ship crashed. A nautiloid mind flayer ship crashed in a during a blizzard, and there are gnome mind flayers occupying this ship. Yes, gnomes in space. Gnomes in space. This is a spaceship, and the immersion breaking doesn't stop there. There are laser rifles. There is a galaxy map, lasers, all kinds of stuff. So I, again, the first time I read this, I was taken aback. My first thought was I'm gonna run parties that I don't like through this, but I ended up running it, and I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it, and like I said, I guess it just grew on me. Um, Pretty much what I'm trying to get at is if you don't like this location, if you don't like this quest, I get it. I get it. I really do. This quest will not be for everyone. That's what I'm trying to get at. If your party is really casual, if you run a bunch of your friends and it's a really casual D&D group, they might very well enjoy this. A few people that I've talked to have enjoyed this one. But if your group is really serious, they show up to the table dressed in character and there's no role play outside. Once they sit down, there's no out of character talk. It's a really serious D&D group. This will not they will not like this quest. So, let's get to it. The Nautiloid ship crashed about 12 miles south of Dugan's Hole. Your party will hear about this crash from either rumors around town of a meteor that crashed in the spine of the world, or they will pick up the distress signal from the crashed ship if they have the psi crystal from the quest A Beautiful Mind. As a matter of fact, if your party does not have this psi crystal on them, I wouldn't run this quest as it's kind of an essential component. The aliens need this psi crystal in order to power their ship back up and get out of there. I said aliens, the gnome mind flayers, the gnome cephalopods need this psi crystal in order to power the ship up and bounce. If your party goes in swinging, they won't really need the psi crystal. So you could run this quest for a party that just wants to go kill some mind flayers. That's an option. But keep in mind that this quest if these gnome cephalopods are going to if the group wants to power up this ship, they're going to need that psi crystal. So I guess they do have the option to go do the mine quest. First thing that the parties are going to have to deal with when they approach the ship is two carrion crawlers that are the pets of the the gnome mind flayers in the ship. These two carrion crawlers are kind of burrowing through the snow, running around, and with a passive perception of 11, the character will not be surprised when these carrion crawlers attack. Once the carrion crawlers have been dealt with, the characters can approach the ship and actually get on board it. Now, a few things about this ship. For one, it is built entirely out of organic material. I even went so far as to say the ship was a living, breathing thing that is dying because it doesn't have the juice. And the life support system of the ship only has about 24 hours left on it. So there are time constraints with this quest, and you can apply those however you see fit. One cool description, and a lot of things about this ship rely on descriptions. Really describe the fleshy mucus, and when they walk around, they got that squish, and the doors, how the doors open. Their doors are sphincters that open up. and the lights are bioluminescent. This is an alien ship, to put it simply. So really, bring on the descriptions. I would prep some paragraphs, some descriptions outside of the ones that are provided in the book. You can describe wounds in the walls of the ship that are actually bleeding, or things like that. Just real um, medical terms. Even this ship is alive, so use those descriptions. The ship is also lit by those bioluminescent orbs that I mentioned. And once the characters climb on board the ship, that's when they're going to kind of have to start making some decisions. Area 1 is the forward deck, and the only thing of interest here is an inoperable ballista buried in snow. The doors leading to the next area require a DC 14 athletics check to get through. If a character fails this check, they may need to come up with some clever way to get through this door, perhaps by thawing the ice. In Area 2, the party's going to meet the 3 gnome squidlings that live on this ship, as well as the flesh golem. The book describes these gnome squidlings as having the reasoning and emotional control of toddlers, blended with the guile of bored house cats. As far as this flesh golem goes, it's going to attack as soon as the party comes in, and chances are your party is not going to be able to do anything to this thing. Maybe a couple of the spellcasters will have the spells to do damage to it, but your melee combatants without magical weapons cannot hurt this thing. This thing does not. This Make sure you read the flesh golem stat block. It does not have damage resistance. It has damage immunity to non-magical weapons that aren't made of adamantine. So keep that in mind when your party engages this flesh golem. Thankfully, they only have to deal with this flesh golem for 2 rounds, because that's when the gnome mind flayers are going to show up and try to negotiate things. However, if the party has already killed one of the squidlings, then the gnome mind flayer is going to summon the pilot, or summon the captain, his partner, and they're going to try and kill the party. And it will just be a combat from there. And then the party will be exploring the ship, the empty ship, if they manage to kill the gnome mind flayers and the flesh golem, or they'll get dropped. So things to keep in mind: the gnome mind flayer will come in 2 rounds and try to negotiate as long as no squidlings have been killed. These squidlings will avoid combat. They will not jump in. If somebody gets knocked unconscious, the squidling will run up and start trying to eat their brain. Otherwise, they stay out of it. And the party's going to need magical weapons in order to damage this golem. So ideally, the party would fight the golem for a bit and realize how difficult this fight's going to be in 2 rounds, in which case the mind flayer shows up and the party will actually have a chance to end this and help the mind flayers. If the party decides to look around in the cargo hold, they're going to notice a couple of heavy chains and manacles hanging from the walls. You can use this opportunity to hint at the bullet that is currently wandering around outside by elaborating on the fact that there are a total of 3 sets of manacles and chains, and 2 of them were used for the carrion crawlers. If the party examines the cargo, they're going to find barrels of lubricant, barrels of humanoid brains, some machine parts, and crates of weaponry. The crates of weaponry contain 6 laser rifles, 3 of which are in working condition and 3 have been partially dismantled and are non-functional. In order to figure out how to use these laser rifles, a character is going to need to make 2 intelligence checks. One to figure out how to fire the rifle, and the second to figure out how to load it. The DCs for figuring out alien technology are in a chart in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'll go over them briefly here. With a 9 or lower on their intelligence check, it's 1 failure and they waste a charge, and they also have disadvantage on the next check. With a 10 to 14, they fail the check. 15 to 19, they succeed. And on a nat 20, or on a 20, not a nat 20, a 20 intelligence check, they get 1 success and they have advantage on the next roll. Area 3 has 4 stasis pods. 1 is for the gnome ceramorph named Dredavex, and the other 3 are for the squidlings. Area 4 is the battle deck, and it actually contains a working ballista as well as ballista ammunition. One thing that I added that I haven't really gotten to try out yet, because I haven't had a party actually mount the ballista, is if you have a party member get in the ballista and ask about how to use it, you might hint at the bullet that's currently running around outside. And if they get in the ballista, they may spot it and be able to fire at it and therefore clean up. Because it has the rules on how to fire the ballista, but it doesn't have you don't really have a target from here. You could bring the white dragon here and shoot at it if you want. You could shoot at the bullet wandering around. Whatever you feel like, give them a target of some kind, or at least have something in mind in case somebody sits down and wants to fire at the ballista at something. You do have the rules for firing the ballista are there, and if they ask the gnome ceramorphs how to use it, they may be able to tell them. And you just a fun little flavor thing. You can give them a small creature out there to shoot at or something, just something to so the party can say, hey, we killed something with a ballista, an alien ballista. Area 5 is the maintenance room, and if they haven't met Dredavex yet, this is where they will be. Now, the book says that Dredavex is here currently in a wall cavity trying to figure out a way to keep the life support system from shutting down. And the book actually describes all these black tubes that he's working on. What I inferred is that Dredavex is sort of the ship's engineer, while Vorin, who the party will meet later, is the ship's captain. Dredavex has 2 magic items on him. A laser pistol that functions similarly to the laser rifle. The party will need to make intelligence checks to figure out how it works and use the energy cells, etc. The other magic item is a psi crystal detector, and this thing will actually start clicking if a psi crystal is within 5 miles of it. Now, unfortunately, the Ascendant crashed far from the only psi crystal that's mentioned in the book, which is outside of Tourmaline. But if the party decides to take this crystal detector and maybe go exploring, I mentioned that there's no reasonable indication that there is a psi crystal in the mine. But if somehow the party is using the detector and can find it within 24 hours, it's a bit messy. But I guess with the right hints, you could get the party there. But it's really going to feel like a railroad, because finding this crystal in the mine outside of the 5-mile radius in a 24-hour period is really going to feel kind of off. So that's why I mentioned that the party would have the crystal going into it. Otherwise, skip over this quest. Now, whether or not this psi crystal detector actually works outside of Dredavex, like maybe if it's in his pocket and it starts going off when the party gets close, that's another thing entirely, because the party may not want the gnome ceramorphs to know about this psi crystal and the fact that they're carrying it. So that's something to think about when your party goes on this ship, that Dredavex has a psi crystal detector that starts clicking rapidly the closer a psi crystal gets to it. So determine whether or not you want that to be clicking when the party gets close, and that will change negotiations a bit. That will also give a bit of value to the party when they arrive, as Dredavex probably doesn't want to kill them, or maybe he does and take the psi crystal. Just a lot of things to think about. What I would personally do is have it to where Dredavex actually has to pull it out and turn it on to get it clicking. Otherwise, it just kind of sits in his pocket, and if they start talking about it, he can pull it up and go from there. Also, with a whopping DC 25 Arcana check, a character can get this life support system working for another 24 hours. And this is where the gnome ceramorphs would put a psi crystal in order to power up their ship, if they had one. Area 7 is the bridge, and it's here where they'll meet the captain of this ship, Vorin. Vorin is here in his chair communicating with the ship telepathically in order to view the galaxy map, which is made entirely out of jellyfish's glowing tendrils that they use to form constellations. Vorin also carries a laser pistol, and he has a pacifier rod, which when activated incapacitates any creature with an intelligence of 3 or lower that isn't deafened with a DC 13 con save. If a non-illithid sits in the captain's chair and touches the 2 blue orbs that function as the control panel, they'll need a DC 17 con saving throw or be stunned for 10 minutes. If Vorin touches one of the blue orbs and Dredavex touches the other, they can activate the Nautiloid's self-destruct system, which causes a voice in deep speech to count down from 60. At 0, the ship disintegrates into a massive explosion bright enough to be seen from 10 towns, and any creature within 60 feet of the ship takes 20d6 force damage. No save. This area also contains a pulsing tendril of flesh, which is currently functioning as the telepathic distress beacon. A character can rip that out of the wall with a DC 16 strength check, or it can be hacked off with a slashing weapon. It has an AC of 10, 15 hit points, resistance to psychic damage. Area 8 is the observation deck, and there's nothing of interest here. You could possibly hint at the bullet wandering around outside the ship from here if you'd like. Otherwise, this is just a really pretty view. Area 9 is the captain's quarters. This area has a defense system that goes off whenever a non-illithid enters the room. There's also another crystal sphere, similar to the ones in Area 3, that functions as the captain's very own stasis pod. There are 2 magic items on the work table. If the party manages to destroy the defense system, they can get the 2 magic items on the work table, one of which is an Eyes of Minute Seeing and the other a Helm of Telepathy. Once the party leaves the ship, they're going to encounter the bullet that was released when the ship crashed. The 2 Mind Flayer Ceramorphs have already forgotten about the fact that they released this bullet, so they won't warn the party about it. Make sure you get the party's marching order before they engage this bullet, as a lot of this thing's tactics involve crashing into the party and using its body to to use its deadly leap in order to do the damage. And that's pretty much how to run this creature. Get the marching order. It's going to engage by crashing into the party, and then whatever party members are grouped up, they're just going to deadly leap. If everybody manages to spread out, which they should, the bullet will switch to doing bite attacks, and from there the party will just take it down like a normal creature. If the party doesn't deal with this bullet, then it's going to start making its way towards 10 towns, and what it does from there is up to you. And that's it for It Ascendant. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know how YouTube works. Hit those buttons, leave a comment down below. Let me know which of the Chapter 2 locations you want to see covered next. And if you want to be a part of this D&D community, make sure you join the Discord. Link in the description. Come by, ask questions, let me know what you think. And as always, I'll see you at sundown.